Alright, congratulations on being done with Unit 1. We're going to talk a lot more about the tests and debriefing on that together in class, but if you didn't get the grade that you wanted, if things didn't turn out the way you wanted, wasn't what you were expecting, you want to adjust how you're studying and approaching this course, please set up a meeting with me. You don't have to, but that's part of what I'm here for, is to help you make a study plan, and especially what some folks do after a unit that didn't go the way they wanted it to. They then sit down and say, here's what I did, now here's what I need to change for the next unit, and if you want a hand with that, I can give you a hand with that. Unit 2 is about the skeletal system and the muscular system, okay, bones and muscles. For the Monday, Wednesday group and the Tuesday, Thursday group, things are going to be set up and arranged a little bit different, because the Monday, Wednesday group this time is going to have a little bit more time in class, and the Tuesday, Thursday group is going to be missing a day for the in-services on this coming Tuesday, the 17th. So pay close attention to the schedule that I have in the syllabus, to the things that I post, and plan your time and plan your studying accordingly. Okay, so you guys will notice that I posted this, okay? I think yours should say 110, but this is what I call the master list for the skeletal system. There's all introductory material, sort of nuts and bolts and basics, like what do we call certain bone markings in general, and what is the layout of the skeletal system. And then there's all the specifics of the axial and the appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton is made up of the skull, okay, rib cage, vertebral column, and this unique bone we call the hyoid bone. Okay, the hyoid bone is unique because it doesn't attach to any other bones. It's totally free floating in muscle and ligament. So on this paper, the first thing you're going to see is skull, and then it goes into bones of the vertebral column, rib cage, and then you'll notice at the bottom it switches to bones of the bones of the pectoral girdle, the shoulder girdle. Okay, the girdles, of which there are two, attach the extremities to the axial skeleton. Okay, there's two upper and two lower extremities, the arms and the legs, and they are attached to the axial skeleton by these collections of bones and muscles called a girdle. And so the area that connects the upper extremities to the axial skeleton is called the shoulder girdle, or sometimes called the pectoral girdle. Okay, and you'll notice that next on your list, you're seeing the bones of the shoulder girdle. Okay, that's scapula, clavicle. And then as you go down the list, you're going to see the bones of the upper extremities. Okay, brachium, antebrachium, wrist, and digits. Okay, and so forth on this list. In this pectoral girdle, there's lower extremities, and then there's a detailed look at the knee joint. We're going to also take a look at the elbow joint, but when that time comes, I'll give you a handout on that. And then there's some general things about the anatomy of a bone in general. Okay, the parts and the named sections of bones, and that's where we'll have a chance to think more about that other kind of bone, spongy bone. Okay, and then we'll be able to see how the compact and spongy bone work together to form a bone in our skeleton. This list, you guys, is important because it has a lot of information on it, but it's got everything that I'm going to ask you on the lab exam. Okay, there's gonna be a lecture section as well where I'm going to go a little bit more in depth. But as far as what I'm going to ask you to recognize on a model, this is the list you have in front of you. Okay, the handouts, like this one I have projected behind me that you're not able to see, is because my own own whiteness has outshone the screen. Everything is on. Anyway, I've got the skull handout. The skull handout is the same structures that are on this list, but it's listed out a checkbox that will help you in lab as you go through the models, and you can identify the bones, but also what we call the bone markings. Bone markings are features of individual bones that we learn to help us learn about muscle attachment later and other things as well. But we're not only going to be learning, for instance, about the temporal bone, the brown one, we're going to be also learning this part of it, which is called the zygomatic process of the temporal bone, okay? And the zygomatic process of the temporal bone and the temporal process of the zygomatic bone together form this structure called the zygomatic arch. It's an arch, okay? That's an example of two bones, each of them with a specific shape, or what we call marking. That's going to be important for you guys to learn as well. Those are on your list, okay? There's a lot of stuff in the slides and in the textbook that's not on this list, okay? It's not on your handouts. Please remember that the stuff I'm giving you is what I'm going to test you on, and you're welcome to explore and dive deep and learn all that you can. Just know that I'm giving you the roadmap of what the test is going to be over, okay? So, just to recap so far, what we've learned is that Unit 2 is going to cover skeletal and muscle. First skeletal, then muscle. The Monday-Wednesday group is going to have more time than the Tuesday-Thursday group this time because of an in-service this coming Tuesday. Okay, so plan your lives accordingly. We learned that the skeleton has two major categories: an axial division, that includes the skull. The skull sits up here. Okay, we're going to learn more about that. The jaw does not hang off to the side like that, but it goes more like that. The axial division is going to be the skull, the vertebral column, the rib cage or the thoracic cage, the hyoid bone. The hyoid bone is here in the neck. I'll show you more about it. That's the axial division. The other division is called the appendicular division. The appendicular division, okay, it means the extremities and the structures that hold the extremities onto the axial division, okay? So that's all the bones of the arms and the legs, and then it's the pectoral and the pelvic girdle, which attach the extremities to the axial division of the skeleton. You have handouts for all of the units and all of the chapters for the lab section, okay? They're already posted on Blackboard, and then they're also listed in one place on what I'm calling the master list. Yours is all black and white, but you can make it pretty like mine. I also say, never trust anyone who doesn't have a coffee stain on their book or on their papers. That shows you, that means work. That means study. Blood, sweat, tears, and coffee. So this master list, we're going to have one for the muscular system as well. It's going to have all the muscles that I want you to learn. It's not too early to start previewing and learning ahead. We're going to have to go through this stuff pretty quickly, and it's a lot of information. Okay. How to study this stuff. I'm going to have videos as we go explaining a little more in detail these models and how to use them and how to look at them, as it pertains to the specific structures. But right now I want to teach you how I would study this stuff. The way that things are set up, I think that you should look it over before class. Because ordinarily I'd give you an overview in lecture, and then we'd move to the lab and you can explore everything that we talked about in lecture, but that's not how we're going to do it this semester. So what I would do is a couple of things. I'm so sorry. One, I would use the chapter outline in the back of the book, okay? This unit for skeletal covers chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8, just like you're about to do a dance audition. At the end of chapter 5, hopefully this is something that looks familiar to you guys, at the end of chapter 5, there's a section called the chapter outline, okay? It's called study outline in this book. It's half a page, less than another full page. This would not take you very long to read. This would take you 5 or 10 minutes to read. Okay, and the same goes for chapters 6, 7, and 8. Chapter 6 is about the axial division. Chapter 7 is about the appendicular division, the extremities, and chapter 8 is about joints. Joints, we're not going to dive as deep into as chapter 8 will. We're going to focus on the knee joint, a little attention to the elbow joint, and we'll talk about some joints in general. And so I would preview the study outline. I would take the handout, and I know that you can't see that, I'm sorry. But here, I'll give you this is the extremities handout, hard copy. No, the extremities handout is moving on my As you can see, this is not a Hollywood production. I'm speaking to you from the heart. I'm trying to give you tips. I'm trying to give you pointers. I'm trying to tell you how I would approach some of this stuff. Okay. This is the extremities handout. Okay. And so, 1, read the study outline at the end of the chapter. 2, read this alongside your book or the slides and start to identify and peek at and preview the structures on this list. I'm not saying that you're going to study and memorize and master it at this stage, but giving yourself a preview, giving yourself a roadmap. When you come into lab, it would be great if this is not the first time you'd ever looked at this. And, when you come into lab, you can say, oh yeah, clavicle. I saw it has 3 parts. And you'll take the clavicle from the box back there and you'll look at it and you'll say, okay, well, this is how and then at that point, we're going to use this time to figure out how do you tell a right clavicle from a left clavicle? And if there's markings that aren't obvious, how can I recognize what they are and that type of thing, okay? So, preview the end of the chapter. Preview the lab handout together with the master list and say, for this day in lab, this is what I have to tackle. Okay, and this is, it'll help you separate the things out that you already know from the things that you're going to have to work on, okay? All of this stuff I'm saying applies to the muscles as well, and you should do these things for both of these big sections, okay? When you're in the lab, it's time to dig into the stuff that wasn't clear, that you didn't have time to get to, that you couldn't figure out, okay? So an example might be, you noticed along the way that there's 3 shelves inside the nasal cavity. They're called turbinates or conchi. And 2 of them are from a particular bone in the skull, and 1 of them is from a different bone in the skull. And maybe you read that or you've heard that, but you can't remember which one. And then you and I can sit down in lab with the model and take this thing apart and learn that the inferior most of the 3 comes from the maxilla, from the maxillary bone. And the superior tube, the superior and the middle nasal turbinates come from the ethmoid bone, which is up in there, up inside the skull, not easily visible. Okay, when you're looking from the outside, these skulls will come apart. So that's going to be some of the benefit of using the models. Okay. And then, after you take a pass through this stuff, you have to find a time to be quizzed. Whether you are quizzing yourself, or a family member is quizzing you, or you get together with a classmate, or you're doing a class where you meet before or after class with somebody, or you go to the tutoring in the LR building, or you set up an office hours with me, you have to quiz yourself so that, someone is putting this thing in front of you and saying, what is this? Okay, great, it's a zygomatic bone, but what is this part of the zygomatic bone called? Well, great, it's the temporal processes of the zygomatic bone, good job. Or they say to you, what is this? And you say, I'm not sure. Then at least you know that's an area that you need to work on, and you can make, you can keep track of that stuff on here as you go through. This is going to take time inside a class to learn all the bones and muscles. It just is. Okay? This is a difficult class, a lot of material. But what I'm going to try to teach you and focus on in lab is, in lecture, is how do I make this into a manageable chunk? The first unit was a big hodgepodge, right, kind of mixed bag of, of materials and concepts and stuff. Now we're taking a deep dive into a couple of really specific systems, and really memorization is the name of the game here. Okay, recognizing things on models and in pictures and covering up those labels, asking yourself, having to bring up the information out of your brain yourself. That is really how you prove to yourself that you know the material and that you're ready for the exam. So that's how you do it. Only way to do it? No. But most people can't look at something once and remember it forever. It's going to take some practice, spaced out, multiple passes through, and it's got to involve quizzing, in my opinion. Okay. So in separate videos, I'm going to go into detail on the axial division, and then I'll see you guys in class later.